Hi, I'm Brian Grant, and you're listening to On Time, the Brian Grant Foundation podcast about living with Parkinson's. If you want to know more about Brian Grant Foundation, go to briangrant.org.
Hi, this is Katrina Call, Executive Director of the Brian Grant Foundation. Thank you for listening to our podcast, which is one of our many programs to help empower people impacted by Parkinson's disease to lead active and fulfilling lives. Our programs are possible because of the generous support of our donors. Please consider helping us continue this work by making a donation at briangrant.org. Thanks again for listening.
Women with Parkinson's experience the disease differently than men, and we know so little about why that is. What we do know is there's societal expectation for women, and they are even more complex for women who have PD. I'm Amber Hesford, your host for this series of On Time, a Parkinson's podcast. Today I'm speaking with Esther. Esther is a former healthcare administrator who retired to devote her time to Parkinson's advocacy and her family. She has 2 children and sits on the advisory board of the Parkinson's Foundation, Southwest Chapter. Esther has been a dedicated advocate for people with young onset Parkinson's disease since her own diagnosis earlier this year. Hello, Esther.
Hi, Amber.
How's it going?
It's going. Still have Parkinson's.
Yeah, you're telling me. So we've learned that women experience Parkinson's differently than men do, emotionally, socially, physically. Some of the physical symptoms that are said to be more extreme in women are fatigue, restless legs, weight change in others. Have you noticed this to be the case with you?
Yeah, and that's probably the silver lining on this disease for me, because I dropped a bunch of all my COVID weight in a month.
I've heard you talk about that. I have not had that similar joy of a silver lining.
Honestly, I think it was the MAO inhibitor. I just spent 2 weeks in the bathroom and then we eventually got it adjusted, but it was funny. It was also the levodopa. So they increased the carbidopa, which took away the nausea, because my MDS was I told him, I feel like I have appetite to food. And plus with the timing of the meds and the food, it's so easy just to be I'll just not eat because it'll work better,
Yeah.
And so it was I kind of had to get over that. I mean, I leveled out at a better weight now, but definitely. And again, in your intro, the societal expectations are that we're thin. So you're kind of hallelujah, I am putting 0 effort into weight loss. But, you have to stay healthy. So
after I had deep brain stimulation, that I gained a lot of weight and my appetite has flatlined. I am not hungry. I pick at my food and I'm still gaining the weight. So, and I feel like that's the cause of the DBS.
Do you think so?
I can't think of anything else. So I'm going to blame it on that, whether it is or not.
I know, but a lot of people I know have that and they're well, good for you.
So we also deal with hormonal fluctuations that affect our symptoms. I know this happens to me, and I'm wondering if you ever deal with anything of the same, like mood changes in motor symptoms.
Yeah, so the thing is, I think I was already moody. I don't really think anybody noticed. And I had already had a hysterectomy. I do still have my ovaries, so I do still produce the same hormones. But, you and I've talked on TikTok about issues that I'd had with libido and things. And I did think that might have been tied with hormone fluctuations having to do with perimenopause. Because when you you'll hear it now. As soon as you hit 40, every time you go and tell your doctor anything, they're it's perimenopause, and then I had all my hormones checked and they were fine. So I kind of don't have that as an explanation hormonal wise, but I do think I'm moody, and I think I've always been moody, and I'm probably just always going to be moody. So people just have to deal with that.
I mean, I as well have also been moody all my life. But I can definitely tell when my period comes that my symptoms are a lot worse. It's harder. I move slower. I feel like my tremor gets 10 times worse, and my period lasts for 7 to 10 days, heavy. So I feel like I get a good maybe 2 or 3 days where I'm oh, I'm good right now. I'm normal, because it just lasts so long. Have you noticed any changes to non-motor symptoms like sleep and stress due to hormones?
Yeah, obviously. Like, who's sleeping? I find that like so hilarious that that's even something that we don't know about and that people don't know about, because I'm sure that was one of my very first symptoms. Like, first of all, I'm a mom, just like you. And like, I never slept the same after I had kids. Like, still to this day, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh my God, are my kids okay? You know, like you kind of sleep with one eye open, I feel like maybe forever. But I became symptomatic during COVID, and, you know, we're both from El Paso. So it was, you know, a really crazy place to live during that time. And I felt like this whole city was up. You know what I mean? I had nights where I just felt like none of us were sleeping. So I didn't take it seriously until after I got diagnosed. And then everybody was like, insomnia. I'm like, well, that explains why I haven't slept since like 2001, you know? And I think it's probably the worst symptom because it just makes everything else worse.
Yeah, if you don't get a good night's rest, you're not getting anything done. I honestly didn't notice insomnia until after diagnosis, and I want to say after I started my meds, so I can't even tell if it's... I think that you did a video the other day talking about that, or I saw your live something where you were talking about how you just don't know what's meds and what's Parkinson's. Like, so much of it you can't tell.
I made that post in particular because I do feel like the whole waking up. So I had problems going to sleep, or I just would fight sleep, you know. But after I started on the meds, my insomnia definitely changed. So I developed immediately this pattern of only sleeping for about 90 minutes and then waking up, and then sleeping for like 90 minutes and then waking up. And over time, it became at very specific times. And it seems like for a lot of us, as I've talked to other Parkies about this, it's like something about that 3 to 3:30 a.m. time period. It's
the witching hour?
Yes. It's like none of us are sleep. Like I don't even need to set an alarm in my life in general. But if I did, it would be like sometime between 3 and 3:30, I'm going to wake up. And that I feel like is the meds, because I never had any problem sleeping through the night before the meds. When I came back from vacation, because we just had a family vacation to the UK, I slept so good that first week back. And actually, I slept really good on vacation. I didn't have jet lag like I normally had, which cracked me up because I think, again, it's just because my body is in this weird sleep cycle anyway. So, like, what does it matter? But it only lasted a couple of weeks. And then it like I crashed again. And I know everything with this. I mean, I know that I only got diagnosed in February, and I don't really know anything about anything, but I do know myself, you know, and I know that it's like the weather, it's just going to change. So I try not to like freak out about stuff, because stuff that I freaked out before doesn't happen anymore. And then stuff that people that have had it for longer I don't have yet, you know, so I know it's going to be constantly changing.
Yeah, yesterday it was 48 degrees here in El Paso, which is highly unusual, and I was moving real slow. I was having a hard time yesterday. So we've talked about hormonal changes, but let's talk about other topics, like personal care topics we often deal with. I'm going to list some things that men don't usually worry about, and you tell me what comes up for you. Makeup.
That was first on my list. I want to talk about makeup so bad. And I just posted about this the other day too. Like, makeup is so important to me, and I don't think men will ever understand that it has nothing to do with them or us being attractive to them. It's me. It's a me thing. It's part of who I am. It's really an art form, I believe. It's part of how I express myself. You know, if I get up in the morning and I don't put on my makeup, I don't feel as happy, you know? Like, and I struggled a lot before my diagnosis with depression, and that's how it manifested for me. Like, I stopped putting on my makeup, I stopped blowing out my hair, I stopped putting on my cute clothes, and it becomes like a snowball for me, you know? So it helps pull me out of that. But it's a struggle because, you know, my tremor is in my dominant hand, and even when it's not shaking, the dystonia makes it hard to do certain positions, you know? And so I've spent probably more money than my husband would like to know about on just like getting all kinds of like different eyeliners, different tools, you know, trying to find that magic combination that but I've completely changed how I do my makeup. You know, I can't use those like blendable kohl eyeliners anymore. I have to use like a gel. I have to use like something that's already like a pen, you know. Mm-hmm. And I have, because I just know it's not ever going to be perfect. But it's gonna be better. And if it helps me, then that's what's important. But I still strongly feel like you need to do a Parky makeup tutorial, because your eyeliner is sharp enough to kill a man, and I love that about you.
I've actually done several, because I think that is the number one question that I get asked on TikTok, is how I still do eyeliner. And like you, I have gone through so many tools to try to figure out a way to maintain that without stabbing myself in the eye. I think I've landed on the stamps that have made it the easiest. There was a company, iMethod, I'm probably getting it wrong, but the co-founder of the makeup line, she actually had Parkinson's and she was a makeup artist, and so she came up with tools for it. So I tried that out. Some of it was great, some of it, and it was pricey for me.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I got those for my friend who has MS, because like you said, it was so expensive. I'm like, I can get one for me or I can get one for her, but not both.
Yeah. Yeah. What about shaving?
See, girl, you're calling me out now. And
are you not shaving anymore?
Look tagged. So I don't know if you ever saw that post I made a long time ago, but like my legs look like I got mauled by a leopard. It was ridiculous. And I was struggling, and I was switching razor blades because I would just like cut myself, because like, how am I supposed to do that without a steady hand? And so, like that was, my symptoms peaked before I got on the meds, like during winter. So I just like didn't shave. I've been putting more effort into it. I did get some laser done. I mean, it's just a challenge, but yeah, that's expensive too, you know? But again, I think it's some point, like obviously I'm going to keep my pits in check and whatnot, and like the garden or whatever, but like the legs, they got to like take a break sometimes, because it's more trouble than it's worth.
So the other day I was laying in bed, and I was like, oh my God, did I spill something in the bed? Like crumbs. And so I get up and I'm trying to stay asleep. So I have my eyes closed and I'm like dusting off the bed. And then I get back in and I'm like, no, I still feel it. Like, what did I eat in here in bed that there's crumbs all over the place? I get up and I'm trying to stay asleep and I'm sweeping it off again. It was that I hadn't shaved my legs. That's what it was. Those were the crumbs, my leg hair. So I feel you, because I have cuts so bad on the back of my knees. And so it's like where all the veins are. So I'm like, I'm going to cut myself and bleed out one day in the shower.
No, I feel you. You know where I'm really jacked up though is my feet. And I told you that like last year, because I knew you before I even had my official diagnosis. And I was going to like this series of weddings and parties, and I went to get a pedicure and manicure, and I had totally stopped doing that for obvious reasons, but I had to do it to go to this formal wedding. And now the way my tremor is, and it was like that to a certain extent back then, if it gets too far gone, it goes into my leg. But it has to do with also the anxiety of like somebody like having to be still. Any situation where you have to be still, it's that expectation that triggers the anxiety that triggers the tremor, right? And so I would sit in that, and I even told them, I'm like, I'm going to shake or whatever. And actually, that nail salon had a bar, and I was like, I'll have a champagne, please. And they never brought it to me. And I was like, I need a drink, but I didn't want to sound like an alcoholic. I mean, like, where's my drink at the nail salon? Like, that would be weird. So I was just like gritting and bearing it, and I had to go like 3 or 4 times, and it was awful. And the last time I went, they stuck my hands in one of those little water bowls with the balls. And it's like a little bowl, a very small bowl. And you have to keep your, and it has these glass balls in it. And so I was just like rattling. Oh, and you're like, there's people sitting next to me. And I'm like, and everything in my body was like, just bail, just leave, right away. But I couldn't. And I haven't been back since. And my hands are okay, but my feet are wrecked. I need a pedicure so bad. I feel like there needs to be like a parky pedicurist that just comes to my house and like gets all the dead skin off because it's horrible.
So for the longest time, I am not one for like cooking or cleaning, and it's harder now with Parkinson's, obviously. But one thing that I have been determined to do constantly is my nails. So majority of the time I do my own nails. So I'll do my own dip or my own gel manicures. But pedicures I haven't been able to do for a while because my tremors shake one way on my hand and then they shake the opposite way on my foot. So to get them to line up, it just doesn't happen. So yeah, when I go to get pedicures or manicures, I have to kind of tell them, I feel like I'm relaxed enough when I'm getting a pedicure that I don't move, but I can see definitely what you mean. The expectation of like, you're supposed to stay still, so stay still. So of course you're not going to stay still.
Exactly.
Makes complete sense. Okay. I know that you and I have talked about this before and I've seen your videos, so I know that this is the case for you, but curling iron.
It's worse. And I was so stressed out this morning because I always get it right here. Like when I curl right here, every time it's like right there. I didn't do it this morning. I don't know what the solution of that is, but I don't know. I mean, obviously nobody's going to be able to see this, but I'll show you. I have burns all over my hands right now. Do you see that, guys? Like that's from cooking. That's from getting something out of the oven. And yeah, that's why I'm just like, why can't everybody just be themselves?
Yeah, I always manage to get burn marks right in the center of my forehead, so I can't hide them because I don't have bangs or anything. So they're just like there to say, hey, look at me. I don't know how to use a curling iron. I somehow managed to get a burn on my hand the other day, on the back of my hand from my curling iron. I don't even know how I managed it, but curling irons are my nemesis. I like to use the one where you like drop your hair and it automatically curls it, but because it protects the rod so I don't get burned, but my hair's not long enough for that yet. That was pre-DBS hairstyling.
You know, I did before the meds get one of those like blow dryer brush combo things. And then I got those like hot gloves and I used that and it was phenomenal, but it damages your hair so bad. It's like really damaging. And so I had to, that's why I try and straighten my hair. I feel like the straightening iron at least is like not going to burn me as easily. But then everybody will be in my comments like, we like your hair better curly. Then send me a hairdresser because
we'll come over and curl it then. Okay, so there are often expectations specific to women in our society to be, for example, the nurturer, the caregiver, or other traditional roles in the home. Are there any roles in your house that have changed since your diagnosis?
No, not really, because fortunately, my husband has always been, not your typical, stereotype role person, He's always been a better cook than me. In a lot of ways, I feel like he's, I don't want to say a better parent, but he's more fun than me, So his role as a parent, like that hasn't changed. He's also, very nurturing. I think I definitely have seen that he is kind of picking up the slack more in some of the things that were things that I typically did, which I appreciate. But we never had the, like, I always say in my marriage, if there was somebody wearing the pants in the family, it's just one big pair of pants and we're each standing in one leg of giant pants.
So obviously I'm single, so I don't have like the roles within my household, but I can say that things have changed even with my ex-husband. There are things that I think that I typically did, like making sure that I made the appointments, taking the kids to all their doctor's appointments and dentist appointments and all those things. And we never had a discussion about it, but I feel like he's definitely stepped it up. And so I don't know if it's because I have Parkinson's. I don't know if it's the kids are older and it's easier to deal with them now or what it is, but he's definitely stepped up and has helped a lot more in that aspect. So thank God. And unfortunately, the kids have had to step up a lot around the house because there's just things that I can't do. Try washing dishes. Try shaking and holding a soapy glass and trying to do anything with it.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I mean, my kids, and I was just real honest with the whole family. Like, you're going to have to do more. I can't do everything anymore. It's just not realistic as an expectation. So I was emptying so my kids mostly put away the dishes now. And I opened the dishwasher and I was putting away some, and like literally all my plates are chipped now. And I don't know if it's because kids are putting away the dishes or because I'm doing the dishes. But yeah.
Has having Parkinson's had an impact on how you feel about being a good wife or a parent?
I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, I think that's the thing that I worry about is sort of that imaginary future that you had, where what that looks like with you and your husband and retirement and your children when hopefully they have children. Like, it's kind of this big empty like question mark now. Like, I don't want to dwell on it, but I know enough to know it's probably not going to be like, for example, how I thought it would be. Because, for example, my husband and I had often talked about retiring to Colorado, and I think I would shake to death in that state. Like, El Paso is the oven that I need. And with my kids, the same thing. Like, I have this, they help out a lot and they want to help me. And I want to tell them, like I used to tell them, it's not your job to take care of me. I want to say that. But realistically, it might be their job to take care of me at some point, not in some way, shape, or form. And so it's not their job. I don't want it to be their focus, but I don't want them to think that I'm going to be like my mom is, who's like 90 and like, I'm fine. I want to live by myself, Yeah. Like, I don't see myself being like that, and so that definitely changes. As far as like a wife, it's the same thing. I mean, I joke about it, but it's like, my husband's 13 years older than me. And so I'm like, you thought you were getting a young, because he always used to say like, you keep me young. I'm like, ha ha ha, sucker. Like,
Gotcha.
You really screwed yourself on that one. Because now the tables have turned, So I'm a pretty package, but I'm going to be like a hot mess. So, but he knew what he was getting into.
I know you've talked about your libido. So has it changed intimacy between you guys?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I've been very open about the issues that I have. So, I mean, just in general, Parkinson's tends to have two categories of what they consider intimacy problems, which is either, both ends of the spectrum. So like lower or higher. And I fell on the higher end. So a lot of it was the meds. I will say that. I don't think they talk about that enough, but the medications, one of the known side effects is hypersexuality. That's just something you can look at the package insert about, and nobody wants to talk about it. But I definitely felt that. Now that I have seen a psychiatrist and talked to my MDS about it, I do think that some behaviors are coping mechanisms as well. Like within a relationship, when you get diagnosed with a disease like this, especially as a woman, but I'm sure for men too, like you feel like less desirable, like you're broken and less attractive because of how the stuff that your weird stuff your body's doing and how people perceive that. So I think I did kind of cling to intimacy in maybe an excessive, obsessive way. And it has kind of been something that we've been working through over time. But I think with all of this, it's like, it's so different for every person, and not just like incrementally, like literally somebody will be, telling me like, I absolutely do not have any desire to have sex anymore. And then somebody will be like, so I've cheated 36 times and it's Tuesday, and I'm like, we're like, let's maybe work through this and like find a little happy middle. I think that's what everybody has to do. But I'm super glad I talked to my MDS about it, because when I brought it up, he was like, I don't know why nobody's talking about this. I'm like, because you guys aren't talking about this. Like, did you ask me? Like, are you asking us? Because I'm just a very forthcoming person by nature. But I think a lot of people suffer with a lot of different issues when it comes to that. And I wish that we could be better at raising awareness about that issue in particular.
I can tell you that when I went to my neurologist, I was talking to him just about like hormonal changes during my cycle, and I'm asking him, and he's like, I don't know. I mean, he's not treating anybody who's still menstruating, so he doesn't know. And then he was saying that he had a patient that was like 28, and I was like, well, what is she saying? He's like, she's a nurse, and I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? Answer my question. So yeah, it can be frustrating to even talk to doctors, because as much as we don't know, they don't know either. So, and yeah, you're right, because they're not asking. They're not asking the questions. And that is why people are not talking.
And I mean, honestly, with a lot of stuff, would people even say, because like when I brought it up, there was a resident trainee in the room, and he looked uncomfortable. Like he was visibly looking, and the doctor, my MDS was like, turned to him. I was like, would you like to leave? He's like, yeah.
He left?
Yeah, he left. Yeah, I'm like, it's going to be a long road for you. I hope that you're going into dermatology.
Podiatry. Okay, so what about your kids? What about expectations as a mom? Has there been anything difficult adjustments that you've had to make with daily routines with your kids, or?
Yeah, they need to pick their stuff up off the floor so I don't trip and die. Like, I have that conversation with them constantly. Like, the stakes are a little bit higher now, I had the conversation, right when I came back from Mayo, but they already knew. Me and my kids are super close. And I had probably told them a year and a half before, like, there's definitely something wrong with mommy's brain. Like you guys, I work in healthcare. I knew something neurological was going on. And they, unfortunately, at the time that I got diagnosed, we had a very close family member that passed away from colon cancer. And that was following the same timeline as my diagnosis. And so I got diagnosed 3 weeks after her funeral. And so that was their first question, was just like, are you going to die? And I was like, no. And everybody just breathed a sigh of relief. And that's really all they cared about. Like, I know they have the internet. My son asked me questions all the time that even though I told them not to Google it, because I knew they'd see like all of the horrible videos of like end stage elderly people that would like just scare them. But I know they do, because my son asked me the other day, do you have apathy? He's like 10. Like, do you think I have apathy? Stay off the internet.
Well, at least he's still living Parkinson's, because he could be looking at some other stuff. So.
But yeah, I mean, I think that being with them is just like to keep an open dialogue. And but I mean, I can't. There's a lot to be scared of in the world, and I try and be like, I'm the fun mom. I'm the cool mom. I'm not the boring mom. Like, just keep all of the stuff that we always did before the same. And so that they have so I can build as many good memories for them to sort of bank up till they're old enough to sort of understand it at a different level.
So my kids were 7 and 9 when I got diagnosed. And I've gotten a lot of flack about how open I am with them. So I'm interested to see if you've gotten that as well, because I've heard some people say that I shouldn't have told them because it's taking away from their childhood, or, them knowing the truth. And in my eyes, I don't want to lie to them. Like you said, your kids are looking it up anyways. They're going to find some way to look into it. And I'd rather them hear it from me. Because that way they get the correct information versus, the worst case scenario and like doomsday, because that's where my kids' brains would go anyways. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's how I am. And I mean, I have been really lucky. I mean, you have so many exponentially more followers than I do, but I have been sort of insulated, I think, from a lot of the criticisms that the other content creators have gotten. I do feel that parenting is kind of that third rail, like politics, that her religion, that you kind of just don't want to come across as like having too strong an opinion or giving advice. But I definitely saw it. So I never told you this, but I went to the in-person support group on the West Side, and I had been meaning to do it, and I had to drop my husband off at the airport, so I was late, and I didn't have time to go home or anything. So I just took my kids to the support group, and it's everybody's over 60, and I thought they would be kind of chill, but at the end, like, they got really heavy and talking about like fear of dying. And I was like, look, we're all going to die. I mean, my kids are there, and that's what I've always told them. Like, we're all going to die. Like, you guys know that, right? Like, everybody's on the same page about this. It's just, I don't understand why you're freaking out, because, right? We're all like, this is happening to all of us. It's just, I don't understand like why this is not my purview. Like, I'm getting there faster or something. And you could tell that they were like judging me, that they were like, why are her kids here? Why are they listening to that? But then when we left, for me, it was a teachable moment, because these are all discussions that I've had with my kids before, how life is. I wasn't raised like that. Like, we just didn't talk about anything. And so I just probably overshare. But I would rather that than, like you said, them go to school and be like, your mom's going to die. And then they're like crying or something, So we're on this journey together. That's what family is. And I don't apologize for that at all, because I think it would be scarier for them to live in that fantasy and then have it broken by something someday,
So you brought up school. What about at school? There's, I think her, Amy. She works with the Brian Grant Foundation. She talks about when she goes to pick up her kids from school or drops them off, she'll wear a t-shirt that's like, I have Parkinson's. So that way, other moms don't think that she is having like withdrawals from alcohol or whatever the case may be. Do you do anything, or do you worry about them judging you at the schools or anything like that?
Yeah, I worry about that a lot. I think that's another reason why I did go on TikTok, because I knew all the moms were already on TikTok and they would sort of know because I'd pop up in their feeds, and then I wouldn't have to talk to them about it. And that's what happened for me. Like, I'll go places now, like my kid's soccer game, and somebody will come up to me and be like, I saw your TikTok. Oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. And then I don't have to have that like awkward conversation. I don't feel as much the need, like the impulse to tell all of them anymore, because it's just like, why? But generally, as the ones that are closer, I do tell them, and everybody's been really cool about it. But I'm not. I will wear my t-shirt. I will wear my Parkinson's looks like me t-shirt. I like the one better though. That's like Parkinson's. It's all in your brain. Like, that's my favorite one. And just be honest. But it's always going to be an awkward conversation. I'm sure though that every kid in my kids' classes knows anyway, and therefore probably all their parents know, because like the stuff that my kids come home and tell me about their friends' parents.
Right.
I'm like,
there are no secrets.
Like, let's get real. So, I'm pretty sure the cat's out of the bag on that one.
I mean, my kids are older now, so I really am like drop off, pick up type of thing. So, and I can't even remember when it first happened, if I was concerned about that. I've been more concerned about how they're going to react about like bringing friends over to the house or hanging out with mom when she's shaking. But honestly, like you said, my kids, I know, are telling their friends. They're having that conversation. So I've been more afraid of them being embarrassed than me being embarrassed myself. But that doesn't seem to be happening. So,
But see, we've had that conversation too, which is like we were already embarrassing our kids like way before Parkinson's.
well, yeah. And that's the thing is that I embarrass them, but it has nothing to do with Parkinson's. It's my dirty videos or mom, all my friends saw your video about, well, I won't say. And I'm like, well, then their parents should have parental controls on their TikTok. That is not my fault. Did you see it? No. Right. So, Esther, I know that you have a crazy schedule with the kids. So, do you ever struggle with fatigue and getting them to all their activities?
Yeah, it sucks. I have adjusted some things. They cut back on some things. We've only kept like the core things because I have to have like rest days in between. Again, my husband helps me out immensely. He has kind of like a 7 on, 7 off schedule. And so on his 7 off, he will take them to everything and I won't do any of it. I rely a lot on my girlfriends, and which sucks because my best friend moved to Tucson. And so I've been like out on the mom dating scene, prowling with the intention of making friends, but also people that live and go to my kids' activities so that I can like piggyback off of them for pickup and drop offs, and like I said, everybody's been really, really helpful. I do worry, and I do try not to worry and think about the future, but I worry about my son in particular because he plays soccer, and he's been promoted to like a more competitive level, and that generally means travel. And for sure, I am not going to be able to do that. That's just not realistic. I'm able to do all the things that I did before because I do them under very controlled circumstances. And I am not going to be able to drive my kid to Lubbock. And I keep trying to tell him and sort of mitigate his expectations. But that's the stuff that's hardest for me. That's the part of this disease that breaks my heart because I don't want to disappoint them. But life is full of disappointments, and that's just the way that it goes.
Yeah. I think like apathy has really kicked my ass for the past probably year. I think that's been my biggest struggle. And I think it really hit this year when the kids, Halloween is a very big deal to me. I like obsessively love Halloween. And so sometimes I'll go bigger on Halloween than I will on Christmas. And the kids were like, when are we going to decorate? There is not a ghost or a witch anywhere near my house right now. And because they'll ask, can we decorate? Can we decorate? And like, we'll help. And then they don't help. And so I'm putting it all up and taking it all down. And I couldn't do it this year and stuff like that. Like I worry about if I couldn't do it this year, like what does that mean already? It's so early on and there's like so much more for them to be disappointed by. And I'm starting it off real early. So I worry about stuff like that.
I was like that last year. I put up like 3 pumpkins the day of, and that was pretty much it. I got my decorations up this year, but my son told me yesterday he had invited all his friends to go trick-or-treating with us. So I get to take them all around the neighborhood. And as you mentioned, it's freezing cold now, and cold is the worst thing for my tremor. But fortunately, my costume this year is a pleather bodysuit, which I thought I'd be baking in like a sausage. And now I feel will save me. But it's going to be a short evening. But it also kind of helps me make them more independent because I do know at some point I'm probably going to be like, I'll just like stand here and you guys can do that street. Whereas a year ago, I would have gone with them.
Oh yeah, my kids got thrown into independence real quick, which I mean is also good because I think I probably would have held on to them too long afterwards. So it worked out. What about women with Parkinson's at work? Women already feel they have to work harder just to feel equal. You recently retired, but can you talk about expectations in the workplace that you worried about?
Yeah, I mean, it was everything. First of all, when I started there at that particular workplace, they knew that there was something. Like I said, I work in healthcare, so they saw what was going on with me physically. They were super supportive, very accommodating, but something definitely shifted when I got that final diagnosis in a way that I didn't anticipate. So when I went back to work, even after, I think it was like 2 weeks, I asked to meet with my boss because I was like, this is going to sound crazy, but I just don't really want to be here anymore. And she was like, no, nobody wants to be here, but like, we need to get paid. And I was like, well, I mean, the thing with that is I'm really fortunate in that I don't really need, like, my income is insignificant compared to my husband's. So I always got a lot of gratification from my work. But what I do had gotten harder in a lot of different ways. I was having issues with drowsiness, like extreme drowsiness, like falling asleep in a chair drowsiness. My commute was long. I fell asleep a couple of times driving home from work. I was sleeping in my car at lunch, like it was brutal. And I saw that the tasks that used to be simple for me were suddenly almost impossible. Not that I couldn't do them, but that apathy of doing like those tedious things is what I call them. Like not the hard stuff, like working in a spreadsheet or doing data entry, stuff that I would just crank out. I would be like, I don't want to do that today. And then I have a very difficult situation perceiving time now. I don't really know what that's about, but I would say like, okay, I do this on Friday, I'll do it next Friday. And then it will, like, a month will have gone by and it feels like it was yesterday, And so I was such a high performer. The thing, it started to weigh on me. I think that's the thing that sucks about Parkinson's is like, it's a slow progression, but you're very cognizant of your decline, right? Like it's not, I think I thought I would just wake up and be like, not, and it's not like that. You're seeing it happen to yourself. And people would make comments to me like, don't you remember you said that already? Or don't you remember you said you were going to do that or blah, blah, blah. And I would be like, it was demoralizing. And again, not meant to be mean or mean spirited. It's just, I was an executive, and it was putting so much pressure and anxiety that I didn't need to have. And one thing we all know is anxiety and stress make all your symptoms worse, And then when you're in those situations, what you do is for me at least, I would overcompensate by taking more meds. And I didn't want to keep just piling on the meds because let's say I had to go into a board meeting, like I would double dose or like pre-dose twice or like take my next dose early to like get me through that presentation. And I didn't like that, So I had a conversation with my husband and he was like, just stay home and take care of us. And I was like, okay. And I felt bad because I just finished my master's degree actually. And I had all these big plans, but I was able to pivot, I feel like pretty good into something that I am kind of more motivated to do, which is the things that I do with the Parkinson's Foundation and advocacy in general. But I do feel for everybody that has to keep kind of walking into the stress of that every day because it's not easy. I mean, even just facing people some days when you're off, it's like, I don't want to people today. And now I reduce my peopling a lot and it's awesome.
I want to reduce my peopling. So yeah, I relate to everything that you're talking about. And I'm in a leadership role, so a lot of the conversations we have are about like, what are we going to do in the future? And, what is your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan? And I'm like, I am planning on staying here as long as I can. The most that I can hope for is, a few more years of being able to work, even much less making plans on how to progress. Right now they're talking about having growth mindset and like looking at things as what you can't do yet, but you'll be able to because you're progressing. And I'm like, that's not the way that I'm progressing. It's like what I can do now and what I won't be able to do a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. So it's been a tough course to sit through when you have a neurodegenerative disease that, the same thing that your coworker sitting next to you are doing is not where you're at. So I feel all the things that you talked about. So based on your journey with Parkinson's, the experiences you've had about blogging or advocating for others with PD, is there any wisdom you would pass on to other women who have been newly diagnosed or may be struggling as they're progressing?
Wisdom. Have you met me? Do I strike you as a wise person?
Quite, actually. At least witty.
I think just the main thing that I always think about, because that's what I thought about, was like, you're not alone. TikTok in particular, but the community surrounding Parkinson's helped me so much, because when you look at Parkinson's and you think about Parkinson's, even in the medical arena with Parkinson's, it's just so predominantly male. When I go to my support groups and conferences, educational events, I just see older men. And, the statistics say we're not actually that disproportionate anymore. I just think that there's this tendency for women to sort of not want to be as visible. And again, I always tell my male Parky friends, like, that are out conquering the world, like, who's watching y'all's kids? Where's y'all's kids at? Because
right,
I would love to go climb Mount Everest, but like, I got to feed the kids, So we have different priorities and constraints that keep us from being out there. And because of that, when you do have this disease, you feel it's just a very isolating disease. And for me, I tend to get in my head too much, and that's not a good place for me to be. I need to like do more things to get out of my head, and advocacy is that for me. Social media is that for me. It's selfish in a lot of ways, even though it helps other people. It helps me 100 times more than anybody that I've had the pleasure of helping. And I think we are naturally, as women, inclined to want to sacrifice ourselves and help other people. And we have to stop that. We have to take care of ourselves first. We have to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first, because we can't just empty ourselves for everybody else. It makes everything worse for everyone. So that's my only advice.
I couldn't have said it better. Well, thank you, Esther, for taking the time to talk to me about some of the challenges women with PD experience with physical, emotional, and social expectations. Hopefully our conversation was helpful for those who tuned in. Thanks for listening, and join us next week for the next episode of this series, where we'll be talking about Parkinson's disease and the stupid things people say.
Thank you.
The Brian Grant Foundation empowers people impacted by Parkinson's to lead active and fulfilling lives. Help support our efforts at briangrant.org. A special thank you to Raphael Sadiq for providing the music for this podcast. This podcast is produced by Brian Griggs. Learn more at griggsproductions.com.